Hey you, and welcome. My name is Mike, and in this old video, we're gonna go through one of them stories that's, I'm tempted to title this video, Really? Really? Because this guy, Brian Walshe is his name, is possibly one of the most stupid people I've come across in a while. It would be hilarious if it wasn't so, but you know. This story takes us to Boston, Massachusetts, well, Cohasset on the South Shore. The wealthy Walshes lived there, nice old house, nice old life, until whomp, our story begins, which began in early January 2023 and kind of went on till when I'm posting this video, because it does not have an ending quite just yet. It has a heck of a lot of that part in the middle though. Before we get into it, please subscribe to see new That Chapter videos every week, and also please check out the That Chapter podcast to see a whole host of podcast-only stories, but now, let's give it a go. Cohasset is a lovely, picturesque little old town of less than 10,000 people, sitting on the southern side of the Massachusetts Bay, and it is the most expensive location on the South Shore. Look at you. And there, in that grand old town, lived the Walshes, made up of Brian Walshe, his wife Anna Walshe, and their 3 children. Their kids were all quite young. They were between the ages of 2 and 6 years old. Anna, 39 years old, Brian, 46, and they had been married since 2015. In fact, they married in Serbia, if you can believe that, before heading off to create this beautiful life in this wealthy Boston suburb. See, Anna Walshe, born Anna Lubicic, that crip, was originally from Belgrade, Serbia. She had a great old education and was a real go-getter, ambitious. In 2009, she ended up working at the Wheatley Hotel in the Berkshires, postcard, Western Massachusetts. And there is where she met Brian Walshe. Well, a newspaper back in Serbia actually claims that Anna and Brian, they met while she was cleaning his apartment that he had in Western Mass. So I guess, love hearts fluttered over bleach. See, while Anna worked hard, really hard, for what she had, Brian Walshe, on the other hand, let's say, he was born into this life of luxury. He was the son of a very prominent New England neurosurgeon, Dr. Thomas Walshe. He himself worked in consulting, it appears. He was a business strategist, a CFO, couldn't really find out much about the companies he supposedly worked for. Like a lot of business consulting, not entirely convinced it's a real thing, but we will see that quite a lot with Brian Walshe. Kind of made up stuff, maybe, just a little. Anna Walshe, on the other hand, her resume is long, and she was going to rise up the ranks of whatever she set her mind to. She'd worked in hotels in Virginia before moving to Western Massachusetts. She worked in DC, Boston, and eventually back to DC. As you can see, she was getting on up there, becoming one of the big dogs in the hotel business, before moving to Tishman Speyer, a global real estate company. Now, when I say real estate, I'm not talking houses here. I'm talking about some of the most iconic buildings in the world, like Rockefeller Center. They owned it. The MetLife Building, skyscrapers in Chicago, Boston, and New York. And so she was traveling to Washington, D.C. a lot, while also at the same time living with her husband Brian, just outside of Boston, and as I said, they would go on to have 3 children together. So, pretty good. Seems like Anna moving from Serbia to the United States, she was living, the American dream. To be very cliche, right now, it swiftly turned into the American nightmare. On the 4th of January, 2023, the Cohasset Police Department were called to check on Anna. Tishman Speyer, her employer, they hadn't heard from her, she hadn't shown up for work. And so they were concerned about her, they couldn't get in touch with her at all. And so the police did what you would expect them to do. They drove over to the leafy street the Walshes lived at on the evening of January 4th, 2023. Brian was there. He said he hadn't seen his wife Anna in a couple of days. This is his story. He said that on New Year's Eve, December 31st, a friend had come over, they had dinner, they had drinks, then they'd rang in the new year, celebrating, the new year together. This friend then left the Walshes' home between 1 a.m. and half 1 a.m., and Brian and Anna, they went to bed shortly after this friend left. Then, the following morning, January 1st, New Year's Day, Anna woke up saying there's some kind of emergency in work, so she had to haul ass down to Washington, D.C. She got up, she got dressed, she got ready, she kissed Brian while he was still in bed, told him, go back to sleep, and then she left the house. Brian said this was between 6 a.m. and 7 a.m. She usually got an Uber, a Lyft, a taxi, whatever to Logan Airport, so he presumed that's exactly what she did that very morning. That was the last he saw of her till 4 days later, the police came knocking. So a little bit after she left, he got up, he made breakfast for his 3 boys. He did some grocery shopping. He went to visit his mother, who lived in Swampscott, which is on the opposite side. It's basically on the opposite side of the bay from Coasset. He said that while he was driving to visit his mother, he didn't have his phone with him, so no location data could actually prove where he had been that day. He said one of his kids had hidden it on him. He actually wouldn't find it till the very next day. He also said that while he was driving from Coasset to Swampscott to visit his mother, he got lost during that trip. I mean, you think it'd be kind of hard for him to get lost, being a native of Boston, and presumably making that trip quite often, but hey, there you go. I guess these things do happen sometimes. Over the next few days, things were quiet. The kids, they were off school over this winter break, and so he was hanging out with them. Obviously not too concerned about his wife, who he hadn't heard from since the 1st of January when she left that morning. Until then, the police called on the 4th of January.
Just minutes ago, a vigil in Cohasset for Anna Walshe, the mother of 3 who's been missing since New Year's Day. While investigators continue their search, Anna's friends cling to the hope that she'll come home safe.
On the streets and in the neighborhoods of Cohasset, thoughts are with Anna Walshe, missing more than a week now, and members of the community finding the need to come together.
Cohasset's a small town, so I think for everyone to come together and show their love and support at the end of the day, like I said, she's a mom of 3 boys, so I think it is really nice for the community to do that.
What this community doesn't have and wants is answers. Anna Walshe was last seen early New Year's morning. Her husband telling investigators she was called to Washington, D.C. for a work emergency at her real estate firm. She was reported missing 3 days later.
Well, he said he said she left for an emergency, so must have been one hell of an emergency, right? Or maybe he was just trying to hide something and failing at it. He had a history actually of trying and failing at hiding things. It was a bit of a habit for old Brian Walshe. For example, how about fake paintings? In 2016, Brian Walshe was able to trick a Los Angeles art dealer into purchasing 2 fake Andy Warhol paintings for $80,000. Brian was selling them, where else but on eBay, and they were 2 from Warhol's '78 series called Shadows. Originally listed at $100,000, this art dealer, who was like an expert in Warhol paintings, he just stumbled across them one day, contacted Brian, and they made the deal outside of eBay with, him being able to talk Brian down from $100,000 to $80,000. This guy, he flew out to Boston, he paid Brian with a cashier's check, and he flew back then to LA with the phony paintings. Brian taking that check and depositing it right away. The art dealer swiftly realized the paintings were fakes, and there was no official stamps on them like there had been in the photos, and the pictures were not identical to the selling photos either. This art dealer then tried to contact Brian, who, went to ground immediately. He couldn't get through to Brian, so he called Brian's mother, and then he called Anna Walshe at her work phone number. They spoke, and then shortly afterwards, the art dealer received an email from Brian, which went a little something like this. "Hello, thank you for calling my wife. She said you were very kind and respectful, which is how I remembered you from our first interaction." What a smooth talker. Then Brian said, of course, hey, listen, I wasn't avoiding, I was not avoiding you. Get out of here with that. I was working a lot. Sorry, couldn't come to the phone at any time at all. So sorry, you couldn't get through to me. Listen, this is baloney. There's no need to get the lawyers involved, though. You know what I mean? If the paintings are fake, I'll refund you the money. I'll refund you the 80 grand. And you can send me back those 2 paintings because there's been some kind of mix-up here. I need to investigate what's really going on here because I was full sure, they were the real ones, and I don't know. I need to check out what's going on. I think I got screwed here, really. I'm kind of the victim here. Of course, then you can guess what happened. No refund was issued at all. Every time this guy was like, hey, can I have my goddamn 80 grand back, please? Brian would say, sorry, banks, for some reason, errors, I have to do in multiple transactions. Says none of this stuff is working, sorry. He ended up sending back 30 grand, not 80, at which point the art dealer called the FBI. In April 2021, Brian pleaded guilty to several charges related to that. And during this whole process, Anna wrote a letter to the judge saying how great Brian was, and he was a good guy who made a mistake, and he shouldn't get into too much trouble. He would get house arrest, having to repay the money he stole, and during the time that Anna went missing, as he was still under house arrest at that time, he would have to have a pre-approved itinerary for when he went to different places. By the way, Brian did at one point actually have the real Andy Warhol paintings. He did actually have them, or he had them. He had stolen them, or rather, I suppose I should say, he borrowed them from someone without returning them. Brian Walshe briefly attended Carnegie Mellon University, and there he made friends with another student who was from South Korea. A couple of years then previous, Brian went to South Korea to visit him, and he saw that this student had the paintings. So Brian said to him, here, listen, they're probably worth a little bit. I can sell them for you. Sell them for you, make a little bit of money. And this guy said, okay, sure. Take them back to America with you, and we can make a bit of money together. Of course, as soon as Brian Walshe got back to America with the paintings, he went to ground completely, and this guy could not contact Brian at all. As you can guess, Brian sold the paintings himself without telling this guy or giving him any of the money. Now, when this all came out with the FBI investigating the fraudulent paintings and what actually happened to the real paintings, Brian gave the authorities information of where the actual real paintings were, but by that stage, he had sold them and they were out of the country. They were out of the United States, so they're not going to be getting them back. What a guy. In fact, looking at his LinkedIn, his companies are most definitely bullshit. 10 Sales Consulting pops up literally nowhere on the web other than its incorporation site and doesn't list any directors or employees. Its listed agent is Harvard Business Services, Inc. That's like a company you'd work with to register your business in Delaware. A lot of people obviously want to register their businesses in Delaware for tax purposes. And when Brian got the 80 grand for selling the fake paintings, he put that money straight into 10 Sales Consulting. It doesn't exist. It's not a real company. His other listed employer, Capital Letters Consulting, has a website at least. A website I'm pretty positive is fake because it lists almost nothing and nothing works. It even lists its fees, which is unusual, almost listing them in such a way as to dissuade people from contacting the company. So how did he live this big life? How did Anna not see through all this shite? He would host these extravagant affairs, dinners in Boston costing 20 grand, having everybody over, come on in. But when people would ask him how are you making money? He would tell them that he had created some kind of computer software in college and he was rich from that. So yeah, Brian Walshe is just a giant piece of shit. And I haven't even got to, I've just been talking about what led to. Remember Brian's dad, that prominent New England neurologist, Dr. Thomas Walshe? Well, Brian's dad died in September 2018. And it would turn out that Brian and his dad had not spoken in 10 years before he died. The reason they did not have any relationship at all is because Brian was constantly stealing money from his own dad. Quite a lot of money. It amounted to about $1 million. And so his dad cut all ties with his son. When Brian's father, Dr. Thomas, died, he left zilch to Brian in his will, other than, quote, best wishes, but nothing from my estate. So you can imagine scammer Brian was pretty pissed off about that. Kind of for a while, because 3 months after his dad died, Brian appointed himself as representative of his father's estate, and he destroyed the will. Then he went through his dad's shit, went through his house, sold everything that wasn't nailed down, and actually, even if it was nailed down, he would have sold it. And I'm talking like Dali paintings, ancient pottery, like real, collectors kind of shit. He took out all the money that was in his dad's bank account and then put up his dad's house for sale. This led to a bitter dispute between Brian and his cousin, who said he was the rightful heir of Dr. Thomas's stuff. During this dispute, it allegedly came out that Brian had spent time in a psychiatric center and was diagnosed as a sociopath, which tracks. Because only a sociopath would make these Google searches. December 27th, 2022. What's the best state to divorce for a man? New Hampshire, apparently. January 1st, 2023. How long before a body starts to smell? How to stop a body from decomposing? 10 ways to dispose of a dead body if you really need to. How long for someone to be missing to inherit? Can you throw away body parts? What does formaldehyde do? How long does DNA last? Can identification be made on partial remains? Dismemberment and the best ways to dispose of a body. How to clean blood from wooden floor. Luminol to detect blood. What happens when you put body parts in ammonia? Is it better to put crime scene clothes away or wash them? January 2nd, 2023. Hacksaw, best tool to dismember. Can you be charged with murder without a body? Can you identify a body with broken teeth? January 3rd, 2023. What happens to hair on a dead body? What is the rate of decomposition of a body found in a plastic bag compared to on a surface in the woods? Can baking soda mask or make a body smell good? These searches were made on his son's iPad. There's absolutely no evidence Anna Walshe left the house, like he said she did.
Good afternoon. It's Brian Walshe. I hope all is going well. I was just reaching out to basically everybody I could. Anna hasn't been in touch for a few days. Do you know anyone that might have had contact with her? Calling everyone. So sorry to bother you. Sure, everything's fine.
Brian Walshe said that on the 1st of January, after he got up, after Anna left, after he made his kids breakfast, he said he did some grocery shopping. Went to a few stores. CCTV did not back up his story at all. On the 2nd of January, he was seen going to a Home Depot and also a home goods store wearing a black surgical mask, blue surgical gloves, and paying for items in cash. What did he buy on the 2nd of January, I hear you ask? Well, how about some rugs and $450 of cleaning equipment? It's a lot of money he's spending on clean. That's a lot of bleach. On the 3rd of January, he drove to a place called Abington, about 30-odd minutes southwest of Coasset. There he placed a big black heavy garbage bag into a dumpster. He travelled to at least one other dumpster to get rid of more items. Now, when the police learned of all this, unfortunately, too much time had passed. Those items that were placed in the dumpster, they had been incinerated. So, we can assume from those Google searches that just a couple of hours after their friend left, after celebrating New Year's ringing in 2023, he murdered Anna. The search is on the 1st of January about cleaning up the scene, how to dispose of a dead body, DNA, blood, and so on and so forth. Then on the next day, he tried to cut her up. Then on the 3rd of January, how to dispose of a decomposing dead body. Yeah, I mean, the police were onto him pretty quickly though. His story sounded odd, and he didn't alert the police she was missing. Her employer did. I mean, come on! Her employer wasn't expecting her till the 3rd of January, down in DC. There was no emergency. And when she didn't show on the 4th, that's when they called. In Brian's car, the police noticed that the back seats were down, and there was a plastic liner in the back, like he was trying to avoid a leak. And they did recover some trash bags, found near where his mother lived in Swampscott. Inside they found bloodstains, cleaning materials, a hacksaw, a hatchet, a purse and boots that were Anna's, along with her COVID vaccine card. And when they searched the Walshe home, in the basement they found blood and a bloody knife. That was on the 8th of January, and it was when Brian was arrested.
We begin tonight with some breaking news. The husband of the missing Cohasset mom has been arrested for allegedly misleading a police investigation.
Initially, he was charged with misleading a police investigation, to which he pleaded not guilty. About a week later, he was charged with the murder of his wife on the basis of the items found, his story being bullshit, and the Google searches done. He again pleaded not guilty.
Some of the searches are as follows. Keep in mind that the defendant said he left at 6 a.m. At 4:55 a.m. on January 1st, he searched how long before a body starts to smell. At 4:58 a.m., how to stop a body from decomposing. At 5:20 a.m., he searched how to embalm a body. At 11:34 a.m., dismemberment and the best ways to dispose of a body.
It would also be learned that back in 2014, so a year before they got married, Anna made a police report saying that Brian had threatened to kill her and her friend. Now this was down in DC, and the listed suspect lived in Boston, and was never named, though it was believed to be Brian. She never pressed anything, so it went nowhere. This goddamn toad with slicked back hair though, real son of a bitch. In 2018, she also posted this picture. Now, when friends asked, she said she slipped on a marble floor at work, but it's just not good. So why did he do this? If he indeed did it, I mean, hey, come on. You know, innocent until proven guilty, am I right? But did Anna learn of his whole bullshit life scams he was running? Did she just have enough of it? You know, she was fed up and was like, I'm out of here, to which he said, no, you're not. Essentially, Anna learned that her husband was a scam artist of the highest order, and so she wanted a divorce. One of his searches was, what's the best state to get a divorce in? Was Massachusetts. She was a smart woman, you know. She had great education, a really good job. She must have known something was up.
Learning more about Anna Walsh's real estate portfolio as police investigate the missing Massachusetts mom's disappearance and murder. Walsh's husband is charged with her murder. Property records show she owned nearly $2 million worth of real estate.
Anna owned a number of properties in the area too, and some tenants reported that not long before she disappeared, she had asked them to move out when the agreement was up, and she was not her usual happy, cheery, friendly self. It appeared to them like she wanted the tenants to move out so she could sell, like maybe she wanted to get away. She had a very successful career. She's probably making a lot of money. Brian, on the other hand, had nothing. He only had what he could scam out of people. So did he murder her to get her assets so he wouldn't be out on his ass, out on the street? Well, as we've seen in these sort of scenarios, it's probably exactly what happened.
See Mr. Walsh, okay?
Mr. Walsh, can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Mr. Walsh, you remain held without bail of $500,000 on the other case. All set with us here today.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Thank you.
But until we know more, we just don't know. Well, we do know that Brian Walsh is a goddamn idiot. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you watching this little video. We miss it. It really means a lot that you did so. So yeah, if you want to see some more That Chapter videos, please check out all the other crazy cases I've covered. Also, if you want to see some exclusive podcast-only stories, check out the That Chapter podcast, which is twice a week. But until the next one, please take care of each other and yourselves, because I love you. Mike out.